Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei and his friends get summoned in Void by Great Red? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Myth 0s216 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Issei blinked, trying to adjust his vision. He didn't recognize his surroundings and thought he was seeing things. 1 minute he was in his house, heading for his room, then suddenly he was in some dark void-looking place. He blinked again, but his surroundings didn't change. Well, that wasn't entirely true. This time when he blinked, the girls as well as Kiba and Gasper were suddenly there next to him, all looking as confused as he was. It wasn't only them two. Grafia was also here with her son Milicus. Riser was also present, looking completely lost. Vala wasn't too far away from him. Sona was near Rias, with Tsubaki and Saji nearby, but the thing that shook him most was the last group. Surzex, Azazel, Michael, and Sarah Fall were also there. After a moment for everyone to recognize that they weren't hallucinating, someone finally spoke. Milicus' father? Surzex, Milicus? Grafia, Surzex? As the family reunion started, everyone snapped out of their daze and began to converse with each other. Rias, Oniai-sama. What are you doing here? Issei, Azazel-sensei. You're here too? Irina, Michael-sama. I'm so glad you're back. Sona, Wani-sama, you're safe. Rias, Issei, Irina, and Sona were both happy and surprised to see them. While they were glad as well, they were more confused at the current situation. Surzex, how did we get here? We were in the middle of fighting Trihexa, and next thing I know we're here. Azazel, Surzex is right. As much as I love sappy reunions, we can't afford to be away from the fight. Every fighter matters when it comes to Trihexa. Michael agreed, but first I think we should figure out where here is. While that group was trying to figure that out, another conversation was being had. Ravel, Oniai-sama? Riser, Ravel? What's going on? What are we doing here? Ravel, I don't know, Oniai-sama. We're all just as confused as you are. Vala had been silently watching as everyone conversed when he suddenly felt more presences appear nearby. He turned to see 3 more people standing in a daze. They eventually snapped out of it and seemed to be confused just like they all were. He decided to listen in from afar. Mash senpai? Da Vinci? Where are we? Ritsuka, I don't know, Mashu. Da Vinci? Da Vinci, not much I can tell from a void. Can't seem to get into contact with Chaldea either. We're stranded. Vala gathered that they were in the same situation as them. Issei noticed Vala looking somewhere else, and when he looked, he saw the new people as well. Issei, hey. Looks like someone else just showed up. At Issei's comment, everyone looked in the same direction at the new people. The small group also noticed a large group of people now staring at them and decided to walk up to them. Da Vinci, howdy folks. You wouldn't happen to know where we are by any chance? Surzex, sorry, but we're in the same position as you. We arrived here moments ago, and have no clue what's going on. Da Vinci, I see. Well, that's a shame. I guess we should put our heads together to figure a way out of here. Michael, we would appreciate any help. As the two groups were mingling, Asia was looking around to see if anyone else appeared. As she looked, she saw a person casually floating in a relaxed position in the air, scrolling through a cell phone. Asia tugged on Issei's sleeve, and when he looked to her, she pointed at the floating man. Once Issei saw him, he went on guard. Issei, hey! Who are you? Issei calling out to the guy got everyone's attention as they noticed the floating stranger. Even Vala was surprised that he didn't notice him before. The floating man in question just pressed a few buttons on phone before sighing and putting it away. Finally, I was wondering how long it was gonna take you to realize I was here. He righted himself and landed on the ground. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Void, a place outside any dimensions or timelines. A place that is completely under my control. This statement put everyone on guard as they prepared for a fight. Ritsuka, what are you after? Oh, nothing much. I just needed your 2 groups from different timelines in one place. Da Vinci, different timelines? Then does that mean that these people are from a completely different route than us? Close. But that's not quite the whole picture. But before I explain that, I should get introductions out of the way. The mystery man bowed respectfully. Mythos, my name is Mythos, and for lack of a better term, I'm one of many creator gods. This gave the group pause. Despite his casual air, he claims to be a god. Some found it hard to believe, but considering he pulled people not only from different timelines, but different dimensions as well, they found it hard to refute. Michael, what is it you want with us? We can't afford to waste time here. Mythos, keep your robe on, Michael. You guys have all the time in the world, literally. Since I stopped time outside the void as soon as I transported you all here. They were all dumbfounded by his statement. Mythos, now then, before we stray too far from the main topic, allow me to explain why I brought you here. The group became silent as they waited for the explanation. Mythos, so first off, who here is familiar with multiverse theory? Da Vinci, it's a hypothetical set of all universes that comprise everything that exists. Well, it's hypothetical to those who don't know the truth anyways. Mythos, correct. As expected of the smartest person in the room. But did you know it goes a bit further than that? Da Vinci showed a surprised and confused expression while the others just looked confused. Mythos, just like how a multiverse contains multiple universes, there is a greater omniverse that contains multiverses within them. Azazel omniverse? I've never heard of that. Mythos, it's to be expected. If people can barely get their heads around the multiverse, then something like the omniverse wouldn't even be in their peripheral. You see, there are many multiverses that have strict rules on how they function, and many worlds wouldn't be able to exist if they had to follow the rules of another multiverse. For example, Da Vinci, would you be so kind as to explain how the root works in your universe to the others? Da Vinci was surprised that he knew about the root, but felt she shouldn't be since this was some all-powerful god. She turned to the DXD group and explained how the root and timelines worked in her universe. Once she finished explaining, Mythos picked up where he left off. Mythos, as you can see, their universe has strict rules on how it's allowed to operate. And unfortunately, their world's series of events would prevent your history from ever existing. As such, you all exist in a separate multiverse from them. So we're not just from a different universe, but a different multiverse completely? Mythos, bingo. And currently you're all outside of both your multiverses. Riser, but what for? Get to the point already. Mythos, geez, chill out, you overgrown chicken. I'm getting there. The others couldn't help but let out a small chuckle while Riser scoffed in annoyance. Mythos, the reason I brought you all here is to give you all a break. The others stared blankly at him for a while. If there was something in this void, a tumbleweed would have rolled through. In fact, Mythos created a tumbleweed to the side to roll through with a wind sound effect and everything just to make things less awkward. After it went by, everyone simultaneously responded the same. Everyone, what? Mythos, it's exactly like I said. I brought you all here to take a break. And I mean a real break with no time limit or some expectations of something. Not one of those breaks where you can't relax because you know there is work piling up in the background. A few people looked to the side with embarrassed expressions, since they understood that feeling. Da Vinci, that's it? No catch? Mythos, no catch. Well, one little catch. Everyone knew it. Mythos, no need to worry, it's not something terrible. Rather, it's the reason why I picked your two groups to begin with. They all leaned forward, gesturing for him to continue. Mythos, now, the reason I went over the whole multiverse thing earlier is because I borrowed something from each of your multiverses. Azazel borrowed? Borrowed what? Mythos, a timeline from each. Ritsuka, you borrowed a timeline? Are you trying to create a lost belt? The DXD crew were lost as to what he was talking about, but Mash and Da Vinci had concerned looks. Mythos, no, or rather that's not my intention. Results have yet to be determined. Da Vinci, what's that supposed to mean? Mythos, well, it's not a guarantee that it will turn into a lost belt even if things go bad because I combined two timelines that operate under different rules. Da Vinci, you combined timelines. Mythos, yes. Did I forget to mention that? The group nodded with a bit of exasperation. Rias, why would you merge timelines? Mythos, it's a bit of a long story. As I said earlier, I'm one of many creator gods. I recently became one actually. About a year and a half ago. Michael, I've been meaning to ask. There is more than one creator god. Mythos, yeah, how do I explain this simply? My world is something like the prime world where all others originate from. All worlds in every multiverse were created from my world in one form or fashion. But the prime world is cut off from interacting directly with the other worlds. Issei, but you're interacting with us now. Mythos, yes and no. This body is an avatar that I'm using as a medium to interact with you. My real body is sitting behind a screen controlling it. It's really boring if I'm being honest. Vala, sounds like it. Mythos, anyways, just like me, there are others doing similar things in other parts of the Omniverse. Some are better at it than others, but I guess that's a matter of opinion. Speaking of being better, some gods are good at creating stories from scratch, just like the ones who created your universes. When he said that, it finally registered to them that they were created from the place that this god was from. Asia, wait then, God-sama. Mythos, please Asia, Mythos is fine. I hate stuffy titles and stuff like that. It's easier to speak plainly. Asia, does that mean the one who created our world is where you're from? Mythos, that would be correct. He would be one issei Shibumi, who is the one responsible for the high school DxD. That's the label for your universe, by the way, universe existing. Issei high school DxD? What are we, some kind of anime/manga? Mythos, spot on. You would be correct, good sir. That statement froze the DxD cast, and the Fate cast didn't think they were gonna fare any better by the looks on their faces. Rias, we're fiction? Mythos, in my world you're fiction. Don't be mistaken, you are all real. The minute your story was written was when it began to exist as an independent entity. Like a parent giving birth to a child. That explanation seemed to calm them down. While they were, Da Vinci raised her hand. Da Vinci, so, who made ours? Mythos, his name is Kinoko Nasu, and he is responsible for several series, which he made interconnected. Fans of his lovingly dub all his works as the Nasiverse. Da Vinci, damn. He's so popular that he gets a universe named after him. Mythos, yeah? Anyways, we've gone way off track. Back to the point, people like them are true creatives, capable of creating worlds from their own imagination. I was simply a fan of watching and reading these works when a relative of mine convinced me to try and create something of my own. So, I gave it a shot and realized that I'm not as creative as I used to be. My younger self would have been able to come up with ideas easily, but I'm at an age now where my brain works a bit too logically for my own good. So, I found a way to put my logic to good use, by creating a what-if scenario. MASH, a what-if scenario? Mythos, yes. I've been a fan of High School DxD ever since I discovered it in, well, high school. And while I was aware of the Fate series, oh right, your series is called the Fate series by the way, I didn't really get invested in it till about 2 years ago. After getting invested in your series in particular, which is called Fate Grand Order by the way, I thought, what if issei had the ability to summon servants like you guys? Issei, summon servants? Mythos, I'm not gonna stop and explain every little thing you don't understand. You'll learn about it later. Issei pouted a bit at that comment, and was comforted by the girls. Mythos, now, a good creative would have made a good environment, or a unique story to explore this idea. Unfortunately, I am either of these. So, I did the next best thing and simply took existing worlds and mashed them together with only minor meddling. Everyone, that sounds like a horrible idea, they all yelled at him, but he just smirked. Mythos, now, it's not as bad as it sounds. I said it like that to be funny, but I was careful when I combined them, especially with how volatile the Fate universe can be when things aren't done right. Da Vinci, so, what timelines did you take? Surzex, yes, I'm curious about that as well. Mythos, well, when I went to look for universes to take, I decided not to meddle with any that seemed to be doing all right. Even if some of them could be doing a bit better, I try not to make it a habit of meddling in someone else's business if it's not a life or death situation. So, I decided to take 2 timelines where the endings were less than pleasant. Irina, why? Mythos, well, I figured that maybe I could use the 2 timelines and have them fix each other, and save them both as a result. The group nodded in understanding, seeing where he was coming from. Akino, I'm almost afraid to ask, but what were these bad endings? Mythos made an uncomfortable face which made everyone nervous. Mythos, both these timelines had similar circumstances as to why things went wrong. For the DxD universe, Issei died way earlier than he was supposed to, and unlike with you, he wasn't exactly in a position to get a spare body. The DxD group was in shock at this, with the girls on the verge of tears and hugging Issei. Issei himself was also surprised but didn't really know how to react. Vala, how early are we talking about? Mythos glanced at Riser before looking back at Vala. Mythos, during the rating game between Rias and Riser. Again, everyone was shocked by this, with Riser in particular looking uncomfortable. Rias, what happened? Mythos, during the final part of the battle, instead of you surrendering so that Riser would stop beating Issei, you let it continue because Issei insisted he could win. Obviously, it didn't end that way, and Riser got annoyed with Issei's tenacity to the point where he hit him with a strong enough attack while he was weakened that the system wasn't able to retire him in time, thus killing him. Everyone was shocked to hear this, with Riser himself just looking down in shame. He could believe he would do something like that. He was too careless for his own good. Riser, I really was too out of control back then. Revel, Oni-sama. The mood seemed dour, but a surprising person came to comfort Riser. When he looked up, Rias had put a hand on his arm. Rias, don't worry about it, Riser. It's all in the past. In all honesty, I have to thank you. If it wasn't for you, I never would have discovered my feelings for Issei. Besides, you didn't do that, another version of you did, so don't feel responsible for it. Riser, thank you, Rias. Although I don't know if I should feel happy that I helped you discover your feelings for another man, but I'm not in a position to complain. The others laughed at Riser's comment, and Mythos got their attention to continue. Mythos, now I know Issei's death is like the end of the world for you girls, but there's more to this. Since Issei died, that obviously means he wouldn't be there for everything that happened after, including the Holy Sword incident, the meeting of the factions, Diodora, the Cow's Brigade, etc. Actually, since Rias married Riser, she was forced to go back to the underworld, meaning Ko was now solely Sona's responsibility. This also means she was the only one around to deal with Kokobile when he attacked, which unfortunately ended with her and her peerage's death. This fact shocked everyone, but most of all Seraphal, who had been quietly observing this whole time, was now extremely angry and looked like she was about to beat the crap out of Riser. Seraphal, you bastard! See what your selfishness caused. Because you not only took Rias away, but killed Issei, there was no one to stop Kokobile. You caused my poor Sona to die. How are you gonna make up for that? Seraphal had to be held back by Surzex so that she wouldn't maul him. Surzex, Seraphal, calm down. Your Sona is fine. Just like Rias said, this isn't our Riser's fault. Seraphal, but it would have happened if he had his way back then. Sona, but it didn't, Oni-sama. Seraphal, Sona, it's my fault as well, or rather my other self's fault. I was too proud to ask for your help and instead recklessly charged in myself. That's definitely what the other me was thinking back then. My death was my own fault, so please take it easy on Riser. Seraphal, if you say so, Sona. That chaos finally calmed down as they came to an understanding. After that, Mash hesitantly raised her hand. Mash, you said our timeline was under similar circumstances. Does that mean something happened to Senpai? Mythos, well, your timeline had a less tragic situation, but the consequences were more dire. The three from Chaldea stared expectantly. Mythos, the timeline I chose was one where Fujimaru Ritsuka was never born. Mash looked like she couldn't comprehend the concept, while Ritsuka didn't know how to feel, just like Issei a bit earlier. Da Vinci, on the other hand, was already figuring out what happened. Da Vinci, I see. You were right about the consequences being more dire. Without Fujimaru-kun being at Chaldea that day, everything would have ended before it began. Mythos, right. As expected, you figured it out immediately. Without Fujimaru Ritsuka, Goishia's humanity incineration plan goes off without any opposition, leading to a dead timeline. Everyone took a moment to process all the information they just got. The first to speak was Azazel. Azazel, so from what I gathered, you chose two timelines where the central figure of each went missing prematurely. Mythos, Yehu. Azazel, how does combining the two solve either problem? The others also wanted to know the answer, as this didn't seem to make any sense. Mythos, simple. If I were to make a pun about it, I would say I grafted one timeline onto another in order to save both. The group was confused about what the pun was, but Da Vinci figured it out. Da Vinci, oh? Grafted, like what a gardener does to fix broken tree branches. Because our multiverse stems from the root. I get it. Some of the others got it when Da Vinci explained it, but most were still lost. Mythos, simply put, I had the two timelines interact at a point before either disaster happened so that they could both be prevented. Azazel, and how did that work out? Mythos gave them a smirk. Mythos, well, why don't you see for yourself? The others stared at him in confusion. Mythos, the reason I brought you here is because I wanted you guys to react to this new universe I created. I wanted to see what you all would think about if things turned out differently. This will also erase the bad endings I had mentioned previously. Of course, something else could happen down the line, you never know. Vala, so let me get this straight. The reason you kidnapped us from across time and space is because you want us to watch your little pet project? Mythos, essentially. Although I was serious about the whole taking a break thing. If you're not interested, then you can just use this time to relax for as long as you want before going back to business as usual. He said it so frankly that the others weren't sure if he was being serious or not. They all took some time to ponder over it. The first to answer was the Chaldea group. Ritsuka, sure, we'll watch it. Sounds interesting, even if I'm not in it. The next to step up was Issei and the rest of the ORC. Issei, we'll stay too. I'm a bit curious about what's gonna happen to other me if I'm being honest. The others think so too. Vala, well, if my rival is staying then I guess I will too. Sona, as tempting as your offer is. Tsubaki, master, I think you should stay and watch with everyone. The others were surprised, especially Sona. Tsubaki rarely told Sona to do something, so her suggestion caught her completely off guard. Sona, Tsubaki? Tsubaki, you've been running yourself ragged ever since you took over the duties as your family's head. You need to rest, and this place is the perfect opportunity to do so. As Mythos said, all time is stopped outside of this realm, meaning that the work isn't going anywhere, nor is it piling up. Not to mention you have a chance to see your sister again after who knows how long. And who knows when we'll see her again after we leave. Sona couldn't say anything back. All of what Tsubaki said was true, and she also did miss her older sister. Said older sister looked on the verge of tears hearing Tsubaki's plea. Serafal, Sona-chan, I'm so sorry I left all the work to you. It was never my intention. Sona, I know, Wani-sama. I don't blame you. Sona took a deep breath. Sona, you're right. I do need a break. And to spend time with my Wani-sama. I'll stay. Serafal, Sona. Serafal was so happy she brought Sona in for a tight hug. As the sisters were bonding, Riser spoke next. Riser, I'll stick around too. Might as well. It'll give me a chance to catch up with Ravel too. Ravel, Oni-sama. Finally, it was the Trihexa Assault Group's turn along with Milicus and Graphia. Surzex, needless to say, will be staying as well for the same reasons. Azazel, yeah, we needed a break from all that fighting anyways. Michael, it is a nice change of pace. Milicus, I want to stay with father. Graphia, we will Milicus. Mythos, great. Now that that's all settled, Mythos snapped his fingers, and everyone found themselves in a large movie theater with couch recliner seats. To the side was a food/snack bar that had all kinds of meals, snacks, and refreshments. Tending said bar was a basic robot with a fedora and a bow tie. Mythos, why don't we all get comfortable before we start the viewing? By the way, bathrooms are on the other side of the room. Everyone went to the bar to get various foods and snacks before finding their seats. The girls of the ORC were fighting over who got to sit next to Issei, which ended with Rias on one side, Akino on the other, and Kaneko cheating and sitting on his lap. As Issei wondered how he was gonna eat his food, Rias offered him her fork with some food on it, which he accepted with a quick bite. The others saw that and became jealous, but before all hell could break loose, Mythos put an end to the fighting. Once everyone was settled, the lights began to dim. Mythos, alright everyone, I hope you're ready for what you're about to witness. Oh right, one last thing. There will be intermissions between segments so that we can have a chance to chat about what we saw, as well as refill on snacks and food, as well as bathroom breaks and such. Everyone ready? Everyone, yeah. Mythos, alright. Let the viewing begin. The screen lit up as it showed Ko Town at sunset. The screen changed to various shots of the town, and people in it as they went about their daily lives. Issei, this seems just like Ko. Da Vinci, oh, so this is where you're all from? Everyone nodded as the screen continued to change. It was starting to get late as the sounds of a scuffle could be heard. As the camera moved to the scene, lights and smoke could be seen. Eventually the scene came into focus as a large cloud of smoke appeared. Rolling out of it was Issei, who was attempting to dodge attacks from a certain fallen Rainer. Rias growled the woman's name as the other girls were also glaring at her. Issei looked down, not wanting to be reminded of his ex. Da Vinci, I'm guessing you all know her? Aquino. Unfortunately, Da Vinci decided not to press further, as it was clearly a touchy subject. Rainer launched another spear at Issei, which he, to the surprise of everyone, blocked with a magic barrier. His glove didn't survive the impact, unfortunately. Issei, since when can I do that? Ritsuka, that's the kind of barrier I can make to protect myself. I guess this means you took my place since I wasn't there. Issei, I see. Issei felt a bit bad about taking someone else's place, but it wasn't really him, so there was nothing he could really do about it. Back at the fight, Issei seemed to resolve himself and took a stance while extending his right hand out. Signal. To think I would find myself in this kind of situation, without having to look for it this time. He thought to himself while a woman with black wings threw spears of light at him. Mythos, oh yeah, by the way, I made it so we can hear their thoughts too, otherwise there would be a lot of moments of silence with weird facial expressions, which would be funny but not very informative. The others nodded in understanding as they continued watching. My will creates your body, and your sword creates my destiny. Da Vinci, so he's trying to summon a servant. But he doesn't have Mash's shield, nor does he appear to be near a ley line. Stay still, you worthless human. No matter what you do, you will die here. The winged woman was becoming more irritated that this lowly human hadn't died when she initially attacked him. If you heed the Grail's call, then follow humanity's path and answer me. Thou shalt wear the spiritual language of the stars of seven heavens. The others were watching carefully as magic began to gather around Issei. He was skillfully dodging Rainer's attacks all the while. The girls were still glaring at her, and it only intensified as she insulted him. I won't be stopped here. I have people waiting for me. The boy dodged another spear sent to impale him. Run! Purge! Pass your judgment, shut the hell up and die! The woman screamed, obviously fed up. The winged woman put more power into her spear, intending to end things here. Rias noticed something off to the side that surprised her. Rias, is that me? I'm there much earlier than I should be. Stop right there. Another voice rang out, but it was too late. The winged woman had already launched the spear. The boy, unmoving, raised his arm towards the incoming attack. Defender of balance. A brilliant light enveloped the area and dust kicked up from the force created. Clang! A loud metallic sound rang out, and the light spear shattered upon impacting something unexpected. The light faded, and when the dust cleared, a gigantic shield emerged from it. The winged woman was confused on what she was looking at until the shield moved, revealing the one wielding it. Mash Pterilite. Ready to engage the enemy. Let's go, Master. Ritsuka H. How did he summon Mashu? Mash, I didn't think I could be summoned that way. Da Vinci, it's definitely strange, but we should keep observing. As she said that, the screen faded to black. Da Vinci, hey! What happened? Months earlier, after completing the Temple of Time. Da Vinci, oh come on, a time jump? What a tease. Faux? Faux QQ, God, everything hurts. What happened? The boy stirred, opening his eyes, only to be met with another pair staring back at him with a mix of worry and relief. Senpai! Thank goodness you're awake, the girl almost yelled in relief, tears forming in her eyes. She moved in and hugged the boy with all her might. The girls who were watching started becoming jealous, while Mash and Ritsuka blushed in embarrassment, since the same thing happened with them. This girl is Mash. She's alive? A moment passed before he realized. She's alive, hugging you back. The boy nearly jumped back at her, embracing someone he thought he had lost. Yes, good morning, Master. I made it, Mash said with a bright smile. Despite their jealousy, even the girls couldn't help but smile at Mash's expression and the clear relief on Issei's face. The boy let go of his kohai and asked the question that was bothering him. Mashu, this is so wonderful. But what happened to you? The boy was greatly relieved that his kohai was alive, but was also intensely curious on how she survived Goishia's noble phantasm. Well, I really don't know myself. When I came to, I was standing at the ray shift coordinates. She cocked her head in thought. I think I remember someone with a warm, kind voice sending me there. But I'm not sure. She looked directly at the boy again. I woke up to Fo's voice, and then I saw you running towards the ray shift coordinates right in front of me. And something told me to reach my hand out and take yours, Fo. Do you know anything? Fo? The small white animal responded. Mash, right? We never did figure out how I survived, did we? Ritsuka, no, we didn't. Asia, did something happen? The FGO crew explained the final singularity, and how Mash had supposedly died but seemed to appear fine later. Issei, that's one hell of a story. But it's a good thing everything worked out. Da Vinci, yeah, but it still bothers me not knowing how it happened. Mythos, I know how. Mythos said so casually that the group were at a loss for words. Ritsuka was the first to snap out of it. Ritsuka, how did Mashu survive? Mythos, Fo saved her. Again, the FGO crew stared blankly at him, while the DXD crew didn't know how the small animal they just saw on screen could have done such a thing. Mythos, I don't know if you knew this, but Fo was formerly Beast 4, or at least a beast candidate. His power was tamed when Merlin turned him into a familiar. Even after he was released, he still had the beast's power in him, but was debating whether or not to turn on humanity still. That was when he found Chaldea and you guys. Him going on a journey with you all through the singularities showed him hope for humans. So when Mash died, he used all his power as a beast to not only revive her but give her a normal human lifespan. The group was amazed, and the FGO crew decided to shower Fo with extra love and attention when they got back as a thank you. Ahem. Hey, now you two, that's enough PDA for now. I know you're relieved to see Mash alive, Fujimaru, but you're making the rest of the staff uncomfortable. A female voice came from the side of them. Both Mash and the boy released each other, and the boy noticed that the entire staff was in the operations room with them. Ritsuka and Issei, wait, why is his / my name Fujimaru? Mythos, so funny thing. The only meddling I did was getting Issei summoned to that world. Everything else that happened was random chance. Even in a world without Fujimaru, Ritsuka, it seems like it noticed you were missing. So when Issei arrived, the world quickly tried to use him to fill in your role. As for how, you'll have to keep watching. Sorry, Da Vinci, I was just. His words started to falter, as he began to feel embarrassed at the display he just did in front of everyone. Da Vinci gave him an amused smile. It's fine. After all, we thought she was gone too. It's a great relief we were wrong. She gave the boy a once-over before continuing to speak. It took you almost an hour to wake up, but your vitals look fine. Your magic circuits were stressed, you seem to be fatigued, and you have a bunch of small wounds all over your body, but aside from that you seem to be fine. We're all glad you made it back in one piece. Da Vinci spoke happily towards him, but soon started to speak in a more official manner. Master Ritsuka, congratulations on completing your mission. With your return and awakening, I am pleased to announce our grand order is now complete. With that said, the staff released some party poppers and began cheering for the mission's success. Mash looked around in amazement, while Da Vinci looked at the pair in amusement. The staff and I prepared this beforehand for this exact moment. Although there is only a few of us, it was never going to be a thunderous applause. But we wanted to make it seem like a celebration. What do you think, Fujimaru-kun? Ritsuka had tears forming at the corners of his eyes. It's great. I couldn't think of anything better than this. He was happy that the people he had spent the last year fighting alongside could all be here to celebrate their victory. Well, almost everybody. Mash stepped forward happily. Everyone, thank you so very much. It was only thanks to your hard work keeping Chaldea safe and in a place where Senpai and I were able to return. This victory belongs to the entire staff of Chaldea. Everyone here made this possible. As everyone watched, the FGO group felt a sense of nostalgia, while the DXD group saw that everyone there was truly happy about ending whatever hardship they had been through. Michael, seems like you went through a stressful endeavor. Da Vinci, stressful is underselling it, but it's a bit long to explain, and I'm sure the videos will explain it eventually. After that, Da Vinci went over what happened after the defeat of Goetia and what the damages were, along with the need for Chaldea to report what happened to the higher-ups. Now that the world is back to normal, we're going to have a lot of questions to answer, as well as. She was interrupted by a sudden red glow that appeared in the room. Everyone turned to the light source only to find that Ritsuka was glowing and seeming to fade away slowly. Ritsuka looked at his own hand, a tired smile appearing on his face. Seriously, is this some plot to an anime or something? He said, somewhat self-deprecating. The girls were freaked out by this, never having seen something like this happen to issei. Issei was also confused as to what was going on. The FGO group were more familiar with summoning, but even they were a bit confused. Kaneko, what's happening to Issei-senpai? Senpai! What's happening to you? Mash almost yelled worriedly. She didn't seem to understand what she was seeing, mostly because it didn't make sense to her from what she knew. Da Vinci, on the other hand, seemed to have an idea of what was happening. You're going back, aren't you? She said with a sad look in her eyes. Mash looked between Da Vinci and her senpai and seemed to come to a realization. Senpai is returning to his own world, she said with great sadness in her voice. Azazel, now I'm beginning to see the setup. Issei was summoned to fulfill the role Ritsuka-kun was supposed to, and once he did, the universe spat him back out where he was supposed to be. Ritsuka gave her a tired smile and spoke so that everyone in the room could hear. It seems so. I kinda had a feeling ever since Camelot. Me and Drake talked about it for a bit, and we felt like we were summoned here for a reason, although I didn't think it would be like from some isekai anime where once the job was done, I would be sent back to my home. Surzex, so Drake has awakened during all of this. That probably would have been a great help on your mission. Ritsuka, who's Drake? Issei, he's a dragon whose soul is attached to mine. Because of that I have access to his powers. Da Vinci, that sounds quite useful. He looked around the room before continuing. Everyone, it's been fun working with all of you and I'm glad to have met you all. He took a deep breath, and with power behind his eyes made this promise. I promise to find a way back to everyone. After all, I'm sure there will be more work for us to do, he said with a wry smile on his face. Both the DXD and FGO groups felt awe at the determined look on Issei's face. The DXD group felt like Issei had matured a great deal because of his experiences. The FGO group felt like this is how Ritsuka would have turned out if he had more power as a mage. Everyone had one on as well and seemed to be content with his words. He then turned to Mash and took her hands into his. Mashu, we still have a bunch of trips to go on, just like we promised. So please wait for me. He tightened his grip. Mash looked at her senpai, smiling with tears rolling down her face. Yes, senpai. I will wait for you, so you better keep your promise. The girls' looks turned from admiration to jealousy again, although they understood Mash's feeling just by the look on her face. Mash felt a bit embarrassed, and when she looked over at Ritsuka she saw that he was slightly blushing too, probably thinking about all the things he and Mash talked about during their time together. On the side, Da Vinci tried asking while she could. Do you think you will be able to do it? She was concerned that he was making a promise he couldn't keep. Ritsuka looked at Da Vinci, barely hanging on to the current plane of existence. You got me here once, so I don't see why not. On top of that, I came from 2007 in my world, so if I'm going back then I at least have some time to work with. Of course, feel free to try and bring me back on your end. He chuckled weakly, exchanging smiles. Well, it looks like I can't stick around any longer. Until the next time we meet everyone, see ya. And with that he faded from the world. Mash stood, staring at the spot where her senpai once stood. I will wait for you, even if I have to wait the rest of my life, she promised under her breath. Surzex, there was quite a bit to unpack there. Azazel, right? It seems that the worlds aren't running parallel to each other. What year did this grand order happen? Da Vinci, 2015, and it took about a year to complete. Azazel, so almost a 10-year difference. Michael, not only that but Issei seemed to have been anticipating this event happening. Everyone mulled over this information for a bit before Zenobia broke the silence. Zenobia, I can't say that I'm not a bit jealous with how Issei was looking at her. Sorry, your name was Mash, right? Mash, why yes. Ravel, is that how you two are? Ritsuka, and no, we're just close friends. Ritsuka petered off at the end, a bit embarrassed. Da Vinci looked at the pair with a bit of exasperation, clearly wondering when they were gonna take the next step. Akino, close friends, huh? I've heard that one before. Akino and the other girls looked at Issei with small smiles. Issei looked away, a bit embarrassed to be reminded of his denseness. Mythos, alright, that's enough chit-chat. Let's move on to the next part. Actually, I have a question for you all. The group looked at Mythos, curious at what he wanted to ask. Mythos, do you want to see what happened right when Issei got back, or do we continue watching as is? Because we're about to jump ahead again to a little before the beginning of this viewing. Basically, I'm asking if you want to watch this chronologically or narratively? The group sat and thought at Mythos' question. The first to answer was Da Vinci. Da Vinci, as curious as I am to see what happened when he got back, I have a feeling we're gonna see it anyway, so we can come back to that later. Let's keep watching as is for now. The others seemed to agree with her, so the viewing continued as the scene shifted. Several months after returning to his own world, Rias, looks like we're going to be starting back at the school. Rias Gremory was staring out of the window of the Occult Research Club, thinking about how to get out of her unfortunate arrangement. Her family had put her in an arranged marriage to another devil of equal social status in order to keep producing a bloodline of pure devils. The underworld was currently in a state of decline due to falling birth rates of devils, even more so of pure-blooded devils, so her family had arranged for their family and another family to have their children marry in order to try and keep the bloodline pure and ongoing. The problem was that her betrothed-to-be, Riser Phoenix, was a complete douchebag and treated her more like an object than a person. On top of that, Rias wanted to choose the person who she would marry, and this arrangement, while good for her family, went against her own desires. She understood she had a responsibility to her family, and while proud to be a Gremory, the arrangement this time around was simply too cruel for her. Even though the families knew Riser's personality, they still went ahead and arranged it anyway. So, as she had time before the engagement, Rias was working on finding a way to break off the marriage. Rias, I really don't want to think about those times. I was so desperate to get out of the arrangement that I was depressed and honestly a bit impulsive. Riser wanted to comment, but one look from his sister told him to keep his mouth shut. Da Vinci, an arranged marriage, huh? I know you guys talked about it a bit before, but was the situation really that bad? Considering you all seem to be fine with each other now. The group made awkward faces, not sure how to answer, but surprisingly it was Riser who spoke up. Riser, we're fine now, but that only happened after I was humbled. I was extremely arrogant before because I had never lost without doing so on purpose. I was from a noble family and had our family's power to regenerate from any damage like a phoenix, so I felt like no one else compared and that everything belonged to me. That was until a certain dragon boy came into the picture and beat the crap out of me during my wedding reception for all to see. Mythos deserved. Riser looked annoyed at Mythos' comment but couldn't argue back. The FGO group understood the situation from the brief explanation. As she was thinking, the sight of a person resting under a tree came into her view. The person in question was Ko Academy's mystery boy and notorious pervert, Issei Hayato. She went over what she knew about the boy in her mind. Issei was a normal student at Ko Academy, average grades, average looks, although to her she found him quite handsome but not overly so, and an all-around good personality. His only quirk was that he was an unrelenting pervert. He was known as a member of the infamous perverted trio along with Matsuda and Motohama, and was known for getting into trouble with them for peeping on the kendo club. Most of the girls in school see him as the enemy of women, but Rias found him refreshingly honest. It wasn't as if other boys didn't have the same desires, considering how often she found her own assets stared at by other students. Issei simply didn't bother hiding it. Ria's face turned into a frown as she thought of the incident. That all changed after the end of the final term of first year. One day Issei had simply disappeared without a trace. His parents called the police, and an investigation was done, but there was no evidence to figure out what happened to him. Rias herself along with her friend and rival Sona did some investigating in case it was something supernatural, but came up empty on their end. A couple months passed, and the police had given up the search, and the Hayatas thought their son had become another victim of children who disappeared never to be found. That is until a 110 call came in and someone had found Issei in an alley with many cuts and bruises. He was quickly taken to the hospital and patched up by the doctors. Soon after, the police arrived to question him about what had happened but were unable to get any information out of him. The doctors found that he had scar lines along his body and determined they were from some kind of surgery, but unable to find out what the purpose was, even with X-ray scans. His parents brought him home and he spent a week recovering before he went back to attending school. His parents had to make arrangements with the schools so that he could wear a shirt during school activities involving swimming, so as to not show the scars on his body. He also wore fingerless gloves at all times now, and no one in school can seem to get him to explain why. Issei, I knew you were aware of my reputation, but I didn't think you were paying attention to me that closely. Rias, well, it's my job to be informed about people in my territory. Although I wasn't this detailed about you. It's probably because you went missing in this world. Issei accepted Rias' explanation with a nod. Ritsuka seemed to have a different question though. Ritsuka, what's this about you being an unrelenting pervert? Some of the others laughed with Issei chuckling shyly. Issei, I've always been someone who has been honest with my desires and was never really afraid to say them, with a few exceptions. Naturally, I would talk about my taste in women with my friends and well, you know how gossip in high school goes. That stuff spreads like the plague and most girls want you to have more tact than that. Akino, oh well, it's their loss and our gain. I'd rather have a man who was honest and upfront with what he wants rather than someone who danced around it all the time. Rias, it's also easy to misunderstand since some people can't tell the difference between love and lust. Mash, I'd been meaning to ask you, are you all going out with the same guy? Girls of the ORCES, Surzex, most of them are actually already engaged to him. This news surprised the FGO group. Da Vinci, a real-life harem in the modern day. You're a lucky man, Issei. Issei rubbed his head bashfully, but their talk was interrupted by a certain deity clearing his throat while looking in their direction. Everyone got the message and returned their attention to the screen. Once he returned, many of the students and faculty asked about what happened, but he more or less didn't give them an answer. Rias herself along with the student council president Sona went to greet him upon his return and noticed multiple changes with him. Unlike before, he had become a bit calmer compared to his previously boisterous self. He had also become more fit from how he looked previously, not drastically so, but noticeable to the trained eye. When Rias had gone to greet him, unlike before where he would have been too flustered to talk to her, he had been kind and responsive, although Rias didn't miss how his eyes went to her first before immediately returning to meet her gaze. The most important change, however, was noticed by both Rias and Sona. They could sense the power of a sacred gear in him, and it was powerful. They weren't able to tell what kind of sacred gear it was, but the both of them had a feeling that it was the reason he had disappeared. This discovery caught their interest, and they both wanted to recruit him into their respective peerages. But when they initially began to approach him, either with their other members or by themselves, they noticed that he somehow managed to avoid them. They weren't sure if it was because he knew something or if it was just coincidence, but it only added to the mystery. She remembered how Sona had hypothesized that it may have been a devil that was responsible for his disappearance, and that was why he was avoiding them, so they backed off of trying to recruit him for now. That didn't stop Rias from sending her familiar to keep an eye on him, however. Rias was shaken from her thoughts as the person in question had gotten up, apparently finished with his relaxation, and looked around only to meet Rias' gaze. He smiled and waved at her, which she returned, and then proceeded to walk off. As he walked off, Rias returned to her desk, continuing to mull over her impending engagement. Azazel, it seems that Issei has been keeping up with his training after leaving Chaldea. Being able to give you guys the runaround while keeping a low profile is no small task. Sona, it seems like he is aware of us too, even before we properly met. I wonder how our meeting will turn out now with a more even playing field. Issei was walking back home, considering what his next move should be. He was well aware that something was following him, and had been ever since his return from Chaldea. He had done his best to keep a low profile while gaining skill and power, but honestly things had become quite troublesome for him. Although things are easier since he told his parents what happened and how he wanted to progress from there. He remembered the skeptical looks when he told them that he was summoned to another world, and that magic was real. They considered calling the hospital again, until he showed them the boosted gear that was a part of him, to them. Thankfully Drake was helpful in explaining both the truth of their world as well as what had happened to their son while he was away, and that convinced them that he was telling the truth. Issei, wait. I told my parents about what happened. How did I manage to do that? Ka-san would have been a worried wreck. From that point forward they helped Issei get whatever he needed to better prepare himself for the future, since there was a chance of him being attacked at any time. The Hyadas didn't want to lose their son a second time, so they took whatever steps they needed to help him, though they were still worried for him and clearly wanted to do more. I appreciate their willingness to help, but there is only so much they can do, he said to himself as he walked home. Michael, seems like things worked out with them. They seem more determined to make sure they don't lose you again rather than trying to keep you safe. Da Vinci, this is what you meant earlier when you were talking about seeing what happened immediately after he returned, isn't it? Mythos, that's right. It would be just a short bit about people reacting to his return and him planning a course of action. I'll make sure to show it later. I need to figure out what to do about the devils at school. If they're friendly, maybe we could work something out, but they have the same family names as those of the 72 demon god pillars. I have to be cautious. It wouldn't be the first time a supposed friend betrayed me. Ritsuka, wait, you guys are devils? Azazel, not all of us, but most of us are. I'm a fallen angel, like we saw on screen earlier. Michael and Irina over there are angels. And most of the devils are mixed with other races of supernatural beings. Da Vinci, so none of you are human? Issei, not in this group, but most of us are formerly humans. Issei thought back to Professor Lev and how he had been a plant in Chaldea the entire time. He wasn't that close to him personally, but others at Chaldea were, including the former director Old Animosphere, costing her life. She may not have been the kindest person, but she didn't deserve what happened to her. Issei remembered watching her die and the look of complete despair on her face. It still haunts him even after more than a year has passed since. Valis seems like he saw something that traumatized him. Ritsuka, it was definitely a terrible experience. Although it worked out for her later, if that's what you can call it. Ritsuka's phrasing confused the DxD group while Mash and Da Vinci had downcast expressions. He was brought out of his thoughts upon returning to his home. When he walked in the front door, his mother greeted him. Hi, sweetie, how was school? She asked cheerfully. It was fine. Nothing too exciting. How was your day, Ka-san? He asked back cheerfully. Same old, same old. Just cleaning the house and watching my shows. Dinner will be ready soon, so make sure to eat it before you go out tonight, she said with a grin. She didn't like the idea of her son going out at night, considering that was how he disappeared last time, but after they talked about how to move forward with what they know now, she conceded to her son's desires even if they made her worried. Issei, this is what I meant. Ka-san can't stand violence. It took her some time just to muster up the courage to watch me in a raiding game, and that's basically a competition in a controlled environment. I will, Ka-san. I have to wait for that little bat to go away before I can do anything anyways. He had made it no secret that he was being spied on by someone. He had considered not telling them so that they wouldn't worry, but ever since he came back his parents had been sharper about when something was wrong with him, so he decided that there wouldn't be any secrets between them. This included Issei's late nights out that could possibly take a few days depending on what he is dealing with. Well, let's see what I can find tonight. He thought, absently anticipating tonight's excursion. Graphia, this version of Issei is definitely no nonsense. He seems to have everything planned out and cut off the internal issues by telling his family the truth from the beginning. Is this how you are, Ritsuka-san? Ritsuka, well, I wouldn't say I'm no nonsense, but when it comes to running our missions, I'm usually serious unless the situation is too ridiculous to do so. The DxD crew were interested in what he meant by too ridiculous but decided to leave it for now. The next day, Issei and his friends were hanging out in the schoolyard watching the female track team do laps, paying especially close attention to the way their S bobbed up and down as they ran. Issei, you know, it's kinda nostalgic to see just me, Matsuda, and Motohama hanging out again. Not that I don't like spending time with you guys, but I guess my time with those two has fallen by the wayside a bit. Maybe I should plan something with them when we get back for old time's sake. Asia, why not invite them to the house? Issei, no way. They would go nuts if they learned you all lived with me. I know they were cool when they found out I was dating Rias, but adding you all into the mix might be too much for them. Hey Issei, are you coming with us to the girls' changing room to peep? The Kendo Club is about to finish practice, Motohama asked while pushing up his glasses. Sorry guys, but I have something to do today. Maybe next time, Issei said, eyes still trained on the running beauties on the field. The DXD crew stared in shock that Issei rejected going peeping with his friends, while the FGO group were a little grossed out by his friend's suggestion. Kaneko, is that really Issei-senpai? Issei, I want to say something, but I really don't have a defense for my earlier self. Matsuda gave Issei a confused look. What's up with you, man? You haven't been out to peep with us in ages, he asked, baffled by how his friend had been acting for a while now. You haven't come to watch any of the special videos we got either. Sorry, but well, I've had other things on my mind lately. There are things I need to take care of before. He stopped himself from saying more, not wanting to get into it. His mind always traveled back to his Kohai Mash, who he promised he would return to. The girls knew what was going on now based on Issei's expression. Irina, I see, that Issei is thinking about Mash-san. He's in love, so other girls are no longer in his view. The rest of the DXD girls nodded, while Mash blushed heavily. Ritsuka had mixed feelings about watching this, even if he knew this didn't apply to his Mash. As Issei's mind wandered, Motohama suddenly rose to his feet, surprising the other two. You bastard! Don't tell me! He exclaimed loudly. Don't tell me you actually have a GI Guha! The frantic boy was interrupted with a punch to the gut. The commotion had gathered the attention of other students that were nearby. Issei looked down at him, annoyed. Don't let your imagination run wild. I have a hard enough time here without you creating strange misunderstandings. No, I don't have a girlfriend, and I would appreciate you not making something up and creating chaos, he said with great irritation in his voice. Issei wasn't stupid. He knew he had a bad reputation in the school for being a perv. It was kind of sad that that was the only thing he was being judged on, because nobody bothered to try and get to know him. He only had a few friends in school, and they were the only ones who interacted with him amicably. Even though he cut back on his antics ever since he came back, he still got blamed because his friends would still get into trouble. It was a guilt by association situation for him, but he came to accept it, even if it irritated him. Ross Weiss, why does this Issei care about his reputation so much all of a sudden? Not that it's a bad thing, but it seems like he became self-aware of his surroundings all of a sudden. Kuroka, so much so that he resorted to violence immediately to shut his friend up. Unfortunately, even though he denied it, the nearby students started talking amongst themselves about the accusation. There's no way Hayata has a girlfriend. Who would ever go out with a pervert like him? If he has a girlfriend, he probably blackmailed them. Really? I feel sorry for them. And on, the gossip spread like wildfire. Issei frowned, agitated at what his friend started. And there it goes. I'd have an easier time trying to befriend Tiamat or Goishia rather than stopping gossip in high school. Da Vinci, damn. That bad, huh? Issei, it really is, especially when they're really invested in something. He turned to his spectacled friend. See what you did? Now there are going to be rumors about me being some malevolent blackmailer because of your carelessness. He angrily stated at his friend, who was now shaking in fear, thinking he was gonna get hit again. Instead, Issei grabbed his stuff and left for the day, not looking forward to coming to school tomorrow to all the new rumors he would be bound to hear. Gasper, I feel bad for Issei-senpai. Issei, thanks Gasper, but looking back, I kinda deserved it. Rias, it's in the past now, I see. You have us now, so everything is fine. Issei smiled at the others as they comforted him. The next day, as Issei expected, the rumors had spread to ridiculous degrees and everyone in school was looking at him like some filth on the ground. Matsuda and Motohama were looking at Issei nervously, considering this was their fault and the fact that Issei had a very clear "I'm annoyed, don't test me" presence around him. They were hesitant to speak to him. Someone else, however, wasn't. A girl walked up to Issei and stood near his desk. Issei looked up to the girl, not changing his expression. Said girl was Aika Kiryu, one of, if not the only girl in school who would talk to the perverted trio amicably. She was also known around school as the female pervert, but for some reason the rest of the school treated her normally. So Aika began. You have a girlfriend? Her expression showed a teasing smile. Issei, classic Kiryu. Da Vinci, friend of yours? Issei, yeah, she was the only girl who would talk to me and the guys before I met the girls. Da Vinci nodded in understanding while Mythos facepalmed, getting everyone's attention. Mythos, that's right, I forgot that Kiryu knows about you guys. I should bring her in too. The others were going to say not to, but Mythos snapped his fingers before they could get a word out, and Kiria fell from a hole in the air and landed in a recliner next to the church trio. Kiria, what the? Where am I? She looked around to see issei and the ORC as well as some people she didn't recognize. Kiria, guys. What's happening? They were trying to figure out how to explain what's happening when Mythos cut in. Mythos, we're not doing this again. He snapped his fingers again, and Kiria got a small headache. After a moment she gathered herself and tried to straighten out the situation. Kiria, so you guys got kidnapped by this weird god person and now he's making you watch another dimension, timeline, thing? Mythos, yup, and you're joining us, so take some popcorn and get comfortable because this story will be just as interesting for you as it is for them. Everyone wondered what he meant by that, but he clearly wasn't going to answer, so they figured they were going to have to wait and see. Kiria settled in next to the church trio as they shared some popcorn. Issei let out an elongated sigh before answering. No, I don't have a girlfriend. Those idiots couldn't understand why I don't hang out with them as much, and began to make up a reason as to why. Even though I tried to stop them, the rumors began to spread like wildfire. You know how it is for me. The other students automatically assume the worst without anything to base it off of, he said, irritated and loud enough so the rest of the class could hear. The other students were pretending not to eavesdrop, and doing a poor job of it. I know my reputation is bad from before, he paused mid-sentence, not wanting to specify. The others in the room knew what he meant when he said that. But it's like everyone thinks nothing has changed. Is it really so easy to think the worst of me? Issei looked directly at Aika. Unfortunately, as long as you associate with those idiots, everyone is gonna act like their problems are your problems, Kiria said, ignoring the complaints from the other two perverts. It also doesn't help that while your personality may have changed, your tastes haven't. You're still a pervert, she smiled wryly. Kiria, well, good to know that even in another universe we're still good friends. Pot meet kettle, Issei said under his breath. He couldn't deny her words though. If he really wanted to restart socially, he would have to abandon his friends. But he wouldn't do that for such a shallow reason, although the idea has been more tempting as of late as his friends had been more harmful than helpful to him lately. At this point he was one bad incident away from leaving them altogether. Issei recollected himself and turned to Kiryu. I wouldn't do something so shallow. What kind of person would I be for abandoning my friends just to score social points? The two perverts had happy tears in their eyes, thankful that their bro wasn't just gonna up and leave them. Irina, Issei is always such a loyal person. Even with this new personality he still sticks by his friends. Aika gave the two a look that said those two can't be helped, then returned to the conversation. Well, it's not like you have time for a girl right now anyways considering your after-hours activities, she said low enough so only Issei could hear her. He gave her a complicated look then turned away. Aika knew about Issei's circumstances as well but didn't have all the details, so she was somewhat sympathetic to his plight. Living a double life sure isn't all it's cracked up to be, huh? Issei, I told Kiryu too? Who doesn't know at this point? Kiryu, I'm a little jealous. The other me got to get in on all the cool magic stuff way ahead of time. Why didn't you tell me when you learned about the supernatural? Irina, it's not something a normal person is supposed to learn about, Kiryu-san. Just knowing can put you in danger. Mythos, it's an understandable perspective, but I think you all know that that's not a guarantee of safety if the attack on your school and Issei's parents being kidnapped are anything to go by. Unfortunately for you guys, it's a case of whether or not people get involved with you. The DxD group frowned, remembering both events and how dangerous they were. Kiryu was the only one surprised. Kiryu, wait! When did the school get attacked? Wouldn't I remember that? Also, your parents got kidnapped? The DxD crew explained to Kiryu about what happened and how they erased everyone's memories after it happened so that people could keep living their normal lives. The FGO group was also fascinated with the DxD group's methods and also felt sorry for Issei and his parents for having to go through that. They make it look so much easier in anime and movies, Issei playfully complained. But if I want to protect the things that are important to me, I have to keep going. His look changed to one of determination. The other students couldn't hear them, but a few had surprised looks on their faces at issei's expression. Some of the girls slightly blushed at an appearance that could only be described to them as manly before shaking that feeling off at remembering who they were thinking about. Da Vinci seems even if the girls hate you, they can't deny finding you attractive in the right circumstances. Issei couldn't believe the reaction of the girls in his class, never expecting them to think of him any other way than they usually do. The girls, on the other hand, felt like if they weren't careful, the other girls in school could move in on Issei if this situation allows it. Aika gave him an affirming nod before returning to her desk. The teacher finally entered, and classes began like normal. Later, as school ended, Issei was heading to his locker to get his things and head home. Upon opening his locker, something unexpected fell out. A pink envelope fell to the ground and immediately grabbed the attention of everyone nearby. "No way! Is that?" Matsuda said, stunned at what he was seeing. Issei had a sinking feeling about what that letter was, as did the other girls. The DxD crew were interested in how he was gonna react since they saw that Issei was infatuated with MASH. Issei bent over and picked up the letter. He gave it a look over to see if it was addressed to anyone specifically. There was a faint perfume smell coming off the letter. He then opened it and read the letter while everyone present watched dazed. "Please meet me by the old fountain tomorrow at sunset. Your secret admirer." The writing was definitely feminine. He was surprised and suspicious. His friends apparently had finally recovered from their shock because now they decided to hound him. "You bastard!" Motohama shouted. "All that bullshit about not having a girlfriend and now you get a love letter. What the hell?" He had grabbed Issei's collar halfway through his rant and was shaking him vigorously. Matsuda followed up after his friend. "How could you do this to us? I thought we were brothers. Now you got some girl wanting to meet you and probably do some ecchi stuff with you too," he wailed. The FGO group had exasperated expressions at Issei's friends' priorities. The DxD group who didn't go to Ko Academy found the series of events amusing, never having met Issei's friends that were unfamiliar with the supernatural. They thought that the trio fit together well. The other students were now in a frenzy talking amongst themselves about what was happening. "No way, he actually got a love letter. It must be a day of miracles. Maybe I should go buy a lottery ticket. There's no way there's someone crazy enough to date that pervert, right?" Ritsuka, harsh. "Issei, yeah, you get used to it." Mythos, "That's kinda sad, man." Issei looked away, a bit embarrassed. Issei, under normal circumstances, would have been over the moon about getting a love letter. Of course, that was the old Issei. "Will you two shut up? It's not like I planned this. I'm just as surprised as you are. And to be honest, I don't even believe it myself." He had an exasperated look on his face. "I have half a mind to believe this is some elaborate prank on someone else's part." After he said that, the other students seemed to calm down somewhat, with some of them saying "I see," or "that must be it," while coming to some sort of understanding. He also heard someone say, "Even if that makes sense, that's just too cruel even for a pervert like him." At least someone had some sympathy for him. "Rias, is it just me or does this Issei seem less positive? It's like he lost hope in other people and is only interacting with people he already had a good relationship with." Akino, "Yeah, I noticed that too. His kind heart is still there, I can see it, but it's like he's second-guessing everything around him. His eyes show how observant he is of everything and everyone around him. Issei, he definitely must have gone through something harsh, because his reaction is basically the opposite of mine when I was asked out on a date. Honestly, I probably should have thought it was a prank from the beginning, but I'm just a hopeless idiot." "Rias, you're not an idiot, I see. You just had hope that you could find happiness, and you did." Issei was happy at Rias' words as the girls comforted him. "Mythos, do I need to make a separate room for you all?" The girls and Issei made embarrassed expressions as everyone else gave them warm expressions. Akino seemed to make a seductive expression at the suggestion. "Akino, era, that might not be a bad idea." "Mythos, maybe I'll humor you later." His friends finally seemed to come out of their hysteria and ask Issei, "So are you going to meet this person?" Issei gave them a side glance, then turned to head for the exit. "Yeah. If for no other reason than to find out who sent it." He stopped just short of the exit and turned his head back with a mischievous smile. Of course, if it's legit, then I'm not going to waste this opportunity. Looks like I'm going to be busy tomorrow. He then walked out while his friends went back to cursing him. Azazel, well, looks like he hasn't completely given up hope. Azazel said that with a wry smile, and the girls had mixed feelings. They were glad Issei still had some of his hopefulness, but they couldn't help but be jealous. Ritsuka, wait, wasn't he infatuated with Mashu though? Issei, oh right, I guess I should clarify. It's always been my dream to be surrounded by women and have my own harem. A harem filled with girls who love me and who I love. In short, I wanted to be the harem king. The FGO group had amazed looks on their faces at Issei's dream. They weren't sure if they should feel repulsed or respect the man for being true to what he wants. Da Vinci, well, it seems you got your wish. It's not all that strange. After all, the most powerful men in history have always had harems of women. And you clearly care about the girls with you, and they feel the same way, so I don't think it's a problem. It's just, MASH, it doesn't sound good, even if everyone involved seems to have accepted it. Issei, I'm aware, but it's what I want, and I've found those who are fine with it, so that's all that matters to me in the end. Da Vinci, a fair point. Once Issei got home, he told his parents about what happened that day. I'm so happy for you. His mother told him, is this our chance to finally have a daughter-in-law? His father was almost weeping as he asked that. Issei's sweat dropped as he addressed his parents. Glad to see you had faith in me, he said sarcastically. Unfortunately, I'm not as hopeful as you two are. We all know what my reputation is, so I'm more inclined to believe this is some prank from someone who hates me, he stated pessimistically. Both of Issei's parents had sad looks on their faces. While they couldn't deny his words, it still made them sad at how their son's way of thinking had changed. He used to be so hopeful even if things looked bad for him, but ever since he came back home, he had been less positive. It's only to be expected considering what he had been through, but the pair missed their son's childlike wonder that he had held on to for so long. Michael, even his parents feel it. His change in personality even affects them. So, what are you going to do? Issei's father asked, repeating what his friend asked him earlier that day. I'm going, if only to find out who sent it. On the off chance this person is serious though, I'm not going to give up this opportunity, he said, determined. The pair had a small smile on their face, glad that their son hadn't completely given up on a normal life. Issei started heading for his room. I should get my clothes ready for tomorrow in case it turns into a real date. I don't want to look like a mess after all. Rias was stretching in the clubroom, having finished her paperwork for the day. Beside her, Akino, her queen, was handing her some tea she had prepared. Rias, suddenly back to me. I guess having the different perspectives is helpful, but how should I say, it feels weird watching myself and being completely unaware that I'm being watched. The others agreed with her statement, since this would most likely apply to them too as they continue to watch. Is your work going well, Bucho? Akino asked. Yeah. I just finished up today's requests. How are things around school? Anything of note happen? She asked while bringing her cup to her mouth. Akino put a finger to her bottom lip and smiled as she answered her king. Well, did you hear the latest rumor about Hayato-kun? Rias shook her head in denial. Apparently he got a love letter before leaving today. It was quite the hot topic, especially among the other members of the perverted trio. Rias smiled. She could just picture the look on their faces. Any idea from who? She asked. No idea. He didn't let anyone see it, not even his friends. Although it seems Hayato-kun himself isn't too hopeful about it. Rias' face slightly frowned, confused. Isn't this what he has always wanted? Why do you say that? She asked, bewildered. Rias, even the other me is confused about the situation. Akino also frowned and responded. Well, apparently Hayato-kun thinks it's some kind of prank being played on him. Rias could see that happening. He had a bad reputation after all. Even so, no one deserves to have their heart stomped on. So, what is he going to do? She asked, slightly worried for him. He is going to meet whoever this is apparently, the queen said. Do you know when it's supposed to happen? The redhead asked. Sometime tomorrow. He didn't specify. Rias nodded her head in understanding and came up with a plan. While this might be underhanded, this might create a perfect opportunity for us. If things do go wrong, we can have one of us come in and help him. which would make it easier to recruit him into my peerage. Rias felt a nervous sweat start on her forehead as she turned away from the looks the others were giving her. Aquino, era Rias. That's quite the underhanded tactic you thought up there. Rias, that's not me, remember? I had no such plan. Aquino was slightly surprised at her king's plan, but then a mischievous smile crept onto her lips. Era, are you perhaps using this plan as an excuse to spy on Haido-kun's date instead? She said teasingly. Rias slightly blushed and denied it. Oh, of course not. Why would I do something like that? I'm only interested in his sacred gear, she stated unconvincingly. Aquino decided to tease her further. Era, poor issei-kun. It seems he's only valuable as a pawn for our king. Rias gave her queen a small glare before Aquino leaned in and spoke again. I'm sure you just want to help him, considering your own love life troubles. Rias turned away embarrassed again, but for a different reason. Issei pulled her in closer for a hug, which she accepted. Issei, thanks Rias. Aquino had a kind expression on her face while looking at Rias. Rias simply looked down, neither confirming nor denying what her queen said. Anyways, we should wrap up our work for the day, she said, trying to change the subject. Aquino just gave a small fufu and responded. Whatever you say, Rias. Issei was walking through downtown heading towards the meeting place of his supposed secret admirer. He had already made 2 plans for the day depending on how it went. A. If it was a prank, then he would deal with the culprits and get on with his day. B. If this was for real, he had plans to take the girl all over town and do his best to show her a good time. What they did specifically would depend on what kind of person this girl was. Incidentally, that bat that has been keeping a watch on him for someone has been following him ever since he left his house. If things go south, at least there will be a witness, although that may or may not be a good thing. Issei finally made it to the water fountain and waited there for several minutes before a girl approached him. She had long black hair and was in a school uniform that he didn't recognize. The girl timidly approached him before stopping a few feet away. The girls glared at Rainier while Issei felt a pit form in his stomach. Azazel held his head as if he was fighting back a headache. The FGO crew were watching closely, waiting for things to get messy. Azazel, I know I already apologized, but let me say sorry again for not reining in my subordinates. It was my carelessness that caused you to get killed, even if it worked out in the end. Issei, I told you it's fine, Azazel. It's not your fault. I am glad you answered my letter, the girl said nervously. I was worried you weren't going to come. Issei gave her a small smile. Well, it would be rude to ignore a letter from a girl, especially one as pretty as you. He did his best to be nice while hiding his suspicion. Aquino, this Issei is such a smooth talker, not that bitch deserves such sweet words. The young girl blushed and decided to continue. Thank you? I was wondering, if you don't already have one, if I could be your girlfriend? She twirled her hair with her finger nervously. Issei felt excited inside but quelled that emotion. Well, it's possible, but I would like to get to know you first. He had to play this right. If this was real, he didn't want to make her feel bad because of his paranoia. But if this was an elaborate prank, she could be just waiting for him to let his guard down, then smash his heart, figuratively anyway. While Issei was contemplating his actions, his thoughts were interrupted by a deep voice. Partner, I can feel power emanating from that girl. Drake spoke into his mind. Issei, oh yeah, I forgot Drake is already awake. Would have been helpful back then. Drake, it's not my fault you were too weak to awaken my power. Mythos, was wondering if you and Albion were awake in there. Albion, yeah, we're awake. Kinda hard to sleep with all this chaos going on, and I'd be lying if I wasn't curious how another version of myself fares. Drake, same here. Issei immediately went on alert but tried not to show it. Is she another devil? He mentally asked in a serious tone. No. This girl's power is different. She smells like a fallen angel. A fallen angel. It was his first time encountering one. He focused on the girl, trying to feel for her power, and found it to be true. It was different from what he felt from Rias and Sona, and if he wasn't looking for it, he would have never noticed. Things just got more complicated, he thought as he readied himself to use magic if things got violent. He hoped that this was just a coincidence, and that maybe she really wanted to go out with him. That's fine, but can I ask you to do something first? The girl asked with a somewhat innocent look. Issei inclined his head to indicate to her to continue. Issei grabbed his chest. He knew what the next words were gonna come out of her mouth. The girls looked at Issei worriedly, trying to comfort him until their attention was grabbed by Rainer's next words. Would you die for me? Killing intent could be felt in the room as the girls wanted to murder Rainer all over again. Everyone else scooted away from them, fearing for their own safety. The FGO crew in particular felt great sympathy for Issei, seeing that he was truly affected by those words. Issei mentally sighed to himself. Well, so much for that hope. He quickly took a defensive position. How about no? He said snarkily. The girl began to change right in front of him. Her body went from a high school girl to a more voluptuous adult body. Her clothes went from modest to black leather that barely covered the important bits. Jet black wings appeared out of her back, confirming what Drake told him. She looked at him condescendingly. Da Vinci, that's quite the transformation sequence. Azazel, fallen's bodies are purposely supposed to be seductive. It's supposed to represent the sin of lust and fetishes. So many fallen have ridiculously good-looking bodies. Da Vinci, I see. How interesting. Your consent isn't necessary. You are going to die here. If you're going to blame anyone, blame God for giving you that sacred gear. Issei made an annoyed tch noise at that. So that's what this is about. How annoying, but now I know other beings can sense me too. Gonna have to work on that later. He made a mental note as the fallen angel created a light spear and threw it at him. Issei managed to dodge out of the way but was soon met with another spear heading for him. He was mid-dodge, so he couldn't avoid this one. Guess I got no choice. It's either block or die. He created a magic circle with his hand and deflected the incoming spear. The fallen was clearly not expecting him to be able to use magic, because now her posture changed from relaxed to wary. Mythos, surprise bitch. The others agreed with his sentiment as they watched the battle. TCH. So you can use magic. Well, it doesn't matter, you're still just a lowly human. Nothing you do will be able to harm me. With that, she put more power into her next spear throw. Issei blocked this one, but the force behind it caused his gloves to rip off. Hey! I like those gloves. He complained half-heartedly, trying to figure out a plan. Do I look like I care what a dead man thinks? The fallen was getting more irritated. What should I do? If I use more power, then I will expose myself to whoever is watching me. But if I don't fight back, I will only end up dead, and that's not an option. Sirzex, I know he doesn't know this, but his best option is to fight. Although he's right to be wary when he knows he's under observation. He looked to his now exposed hand to see his command spells, still on his hand even after he returned from Chaldea. He had people who he had to see again no matter what. Well, I guess it's do or die time. He felt the power of it course through him still, but whenever he tried to summon his servants to him before, it didn't work. But he was going to place all his bets on it this time, to prove that he was willing to risk everything for a chance. Here goes something. Sometime earlier when the fight started. Kiba, wait, we're cutting back to us in the middle of the fight? Mythos, well, you saw what was happening earlier. So, this is to show how Rias knew to show up earlier. Rias rose from her seat so fast it startled the other members of the ORC in the room. She had been watching Issei to see how things would turn out, but she never expected a fallen angel to attack him. Before Aquino could ask what happened, Rias spoke alarmed. Issei is being attacked by a fallen angel. We need to go help him immediately, she ordered the others, and they began preparations to save Issei. Meanwhile in Chaldea, Da Vinci, wait, now we're cutting to us? I'm glad we finally get some screen time, but is now the right time? Mash, well, maybe we'll get an explanation as to how I got summoned. Mash was walking through the halls of Chaldea trying to be helpful. It had been a few weeks since Ritsuka returned to his own world, and Chaldea had been busy explaining what happened during the Grand Order, and how everything got solved. It had been quite hectic for everyone, and Mash and the servants that remained were doing their best to help make things easier. She absent-mindedly thought how her senpai was doing, although not that much time had passed. She was brought out of her thoughts when a communication came in. Ritsuka, only a few weeks have passed at Chaldea? Does time pass differently between the two worlds? Mythos, sort of. My merging of the timelines wasn't perfect. It was my first time after all. I've been trying to keep it stable and have been working behind the scenes to make sure it stays that way. Mash. I need you to come to the command room immediately. It's urgent. Da Vinci spoke in a somewhat distracted tone. Mash was slightly taken aback but nodded. Alright, I'm on my way. She began running down the hall with Fo on her shoulder. When she arrived, she found Da Vinci as well as several other staff members working at their stations, completely focused on what they were working on. Mash went up to Da Vinci, who was furiously working on something. I'm here, Da Vinci-san. What's happening? Mash asked with a serious look on her face. Da Vinci gave Mash a glance before returning to the screen in front of her. We got a signal just now. It's weak, but Da Vinci turned her head fully to Mash. We think it's Fujiwara-kun, she said seriously. Issei, you were able to detect me across timelines? Da Vinci, it's kinda our thing. We correct distortions in time to prevent humanity's extinction. The DXD group looked at the FGO group with slight awe and returned their attention to the screen to see more. Mash was surprised. She wasn't expecting anything so soon. She felt the urge to jump for joy, but the look on Da Vinci's face said that wasn't all there is to it. Is something wrong? Mash asked, worried. Da Vinci returned to the screen. The readings are messy, but from what I can tell, Fujiwara-kun seems to be in danger, or at the very least under duress. Mash looked shocked. She had hoped that once he had gone home he would have some time to relax before something happened, but now he was in danger, and no one could seem to help him. She couldn't help him. For some reason, after they returned from the Temple of Time, Mash wasn't able to use her servant powers. Even if she could go to him, she would be useless. She bit her lip in vexation. Isn't there anything we can do to help? Mash asked. We're having a hard time just trying to establish communication. We won't be able to send anyone to help, especially without a summoning zone, and he doesn't have your shield with him either. Da Vinci also seemed vexed. Neither knew what to do in this situation and simply hoped that Ritsuka would come out okay, but suddenly Mash felt something. She put her hand over her chest as something was calling out to her. Senpai? She said out to no one in particular. Da Vinci, seems like their master-servant connection was strong. Strong enough to even reach across worlds. Reminds me of a certain other master-servant pair. Ritsuka and Mash blushed while the others gave them warm looks. Da Vinci looked at her perplexed, but then started getting a signal from Ritsuka. It was the same readings as when he would try to summon a servant. It was then that she realized that Mash was responding to him. Mash, keep focusing on whatever you're feeling right now. I think Fujiwara-kun is trying to summon you. Mash's eyes went wide at what she was told. Senpai wanted her help, despite how useless she was right now. No, she couldn't think that way. No matter how bad things got, her senpai kept moving forward. Now it's her turn to move forward and help her senpai. Her and Fo's body began to glow, and a magic circle appeared beneath her. Master, I'm coming! In a flash of light, Mash and Fo were gone. The fallen was trying to comprehend what had just happened. She was certain that the spear she threw was going to kill him, but then someone else appeared out of nowhere and blocked it. Such an ability was not part of her information about her target. He should have been just some ordinary high school student with a sacred gear, yet nothing had gone as planned. What is this? What did you do? She yelled, irritated at the human. Issei didn't seem to hear her because he was completely focused on his kohai, who he successfully summoned in front of him. Mashu. It's really you. He was so happy but did his best to hold back his emotions. Now wasn't the time for happy reunions. Asia, he looked so relieved to see Mash-sen again. Kuroka, it's like some of the life returned to his eyes when she showed up. Yes, master, I heard your call, so I came as quickly as I could. She repositioned herself ready for a fight. What is the situation? He refocused himself and stated, that fallen angel is trying to kill me. Vale no da. Anything else, Captain Obvious? That was all he said. He had to keep in mind that he was still being watched, and now they knew he can summon people to help him. He exchanged a look with Mash that said he would explain more later. Understood. Let's defeat her together, master. Don't think that adding another person will change anything. I'll still. She was cut off mid-sentence as she had to deflect a bolt of destruction energy fired at her with her light spear. Everyone turned to see who fired the attack, and they saw Rias there with her peerage. Who are you and what do you think you're doing attacking someone in my territory? Rias demanded from the fallen. Issei, here comes Rias with the save. The fallen let out an annoyed tch noise. You got lucky this time, human. The next time we meet will be your end. A magic circle appeared beneath her, and she vanished. With the fallen angel gone, everyone there relaxed a bit. Everyone spread out and make sure there aren't any surprises nearby, Rias told her peerage, and they went to do so. Rias approached Issei and his new companion. She was about to address them, but Issei started talking first. Phew, that was close. Thanks a lot, Ma. He was tackled to the ground by Mash, who was hugging him with all her might. Fo, who also appeared with Mash, jumped to his shoulder, rubbing against his cheek. Senpai, I missed you so much. Even though it hasn't been that long since we parted ways, it felt like an eternity. She was crying and pouring her heart out to her important person who she thought she might never see again. Everyone gave warm smiles to the scene they were watching, with Issei and Mash both being a bit embarrassed. Da Vinci, my, someone became super clingy. I didn't think you had it in you. Maybe we should separate you from Ritsuka for a while and see if we get the same result. Ritsuka and Mash, absolutely not. The pair refused immediately, gaining smiles from everyone who saw them. Issei was surprised at how Mash was acting. He had never seen her this way before, although he would be lying if he said he wasn't happy. I'm sorry it took me so long to get in touch. Although considering it took me only several months, maybe I should be grateful it only took this long. Mash removed her head from his chest and looked up at him confused. A few months? It has only been a few weeks, she said, confused. Eh? Issei was confused now too. Is there some kind of time discrepancy between here and there? He was trying to figure out where the disconnect was. Azazel, so even they noticed that something is going on with the time frames of each world. Mythos, look, I'm trying, okay? As it stands right now, the FGO timeline is running slower than the DXD timeline. I'm trying to stabilize them, but it's also hard to do when the two timelines are operating in different years. Unfortunately, he didn't have time to ponder it too much as they were inevitably interrupted. Ahem. Rias cleared her throat to get their attention so that she could stop feeling like air. Upon realizing that there were other people there, Mash immediately moved between Rias and company and Issei and deployed her shield to protect her master. Rias was taken aback by this, not expecting her to be on guard against her after she came to save them. There is no need to be alarmed. I came to help, Rias said in as friendly a tone she could, trying to ease the girl's suspicion. It's okay, Mashu. She is my senpai from school, Issei said, standing up from the ground and dusting himself off. Mash relaxed a bit and moved her shield to the side, although it didn't go unnoticed by Rias that she didn't dismiss it like before when she didn't notice them. Thank you for your help, Rias-senpai. I wasn't expecting to get attacked like that today. So that was a fallen angel, huh? Honestly, I wasn't expecting my first interaction with the factions to be like this. Upon saying that, Rias' eyebrows raised as she was staring at Issei. Issei gave her a small smile and lightly said, I'm vaguely aware of the supernatural. Well, it could have gone better. Rias gave him a discerning look, trying not to miss this opportunity. Why don't you come to the Occult Research Club after school tomorrow? I would be glad to help inform you on the things you don't know about the supernatural. I'm sure it will be enlightening for both of us. Issei pondered this for a moment. All right, that sounds like a good idea. He gave her a slightly suspicious look. As long as information exchange is all that's happening. Needless to say, the DXD group was shocked. They never imagined Issei talking back to Rias in any way, so him throwing an accusation at her and showing clear distrust shook them. Rias herself was especially affected, vowing internally never to give Issei a reason to look at her like that. Rias was being surprised again and again today. She had never been treated like this before. It was quite new to her. That aside, she frowned at the subtle accusation that Issei threw at her. I understand that you were just attacked, Hayato-kun, but believe me when I say that I would never do something like that, she responded frostily. Issei shuddered at Ria's tone. He'd heard her disappointed voice before, but it had been some time. He didn't want to be reminded of what it felt like for her to be disappointed in him. Issei stared at her a bit longer before responding. Well, like you said, I just got attacked. You can't exactly blame me for being wary. He relaxed a bit, Then his expression changed as if remembering something. "Oh right, it should be fine for me to bring her along to this meeting as well, right?" he asked nonchalantly, his eyes indicating who he was talking about. Rias gave an affirmative nod. "It shouldn't be a problem. I can see how having someone with you would make things more comfortable for you." She brushed her hair aside, trying her best to look refined. "I will have someone from my peerage come to pick you up tomorrow after class." Issei gave an affirmative nod to Rias, and she took that as her cue to leave. "I will see you after school tomorrow, Hayato-kun." Once her peerage had gathered together, they all left for the clubroom. Rias was pondering what she was gonna have to do to prepare for tomorrow. I should probably tell Sona what happened and invite her to join the meeting. With those thoughts in her head, she went home for the day. "Sona, looks like I'm going to be involved with Issei's introduction to the supernatural world as well." Serafal, so it's Rias and Sona versus Issei. Saji, why versus? They aren't fighting, they're just talking and negotiating. Serafal, and that is Rias and especially Sona's battlefield. I wonder how this Issei will fare. As the members of the ORC left, Issei and Mash were left alone. Mash dismissed her shield and turned to face Issei. "What do we do from here, senpai?" Mash was in a completely unknown place, and was relying on her senpai to know what to do next. Issei pondered for a bit before smiling. "Well, I was planning on going on a date today, but seeing as how the other girl tried to kill me, I guess that means I'll have to take you instead." The girls, Surzex, and Azazel all had smiles at Issei's playfulness. "Akino, smooth talker. Does he plan on taking her to bed tonight?" Akino made a playful guess, causing Mash and Issei to blush intensely. Ritsuka again had incredibly complicated feelings, not sure what to feel about this. Issei had a mischievous smile on his face as he was talking to his kohai. Mash, on the other hand, was having a brain overload. "A DD date? Me and senpai? He wants to go with me? Wait. He was going to go on a date with someone else." Mash's mind was in chaos. Many emotions and thoughts were fighting for control over what to do. Eventually one made it to the surface. If you're fine with me, senpai, then I will go with you." Mash's face was blushing to the max. "Rias, aw, Mash-san, you are so precious." "Mash, I appreciate it, Rias-san." Issei had to stop himself from bursting out laughing at how adorable Mash was being. He recollected himself, then addressed her. "Hey, do you think you can change into your normal clothes? It would be kinda weird to walk around town with a girl in armor." "I will try." Mash focused her mind on trying to turn back to normal. After a few moments, her outfit changed back to her casual clothes she always wore around Chaldea. "Much better," Issei said, looking at a nostalgic sight. He extended his elbow out for Mash to take, which she took nervously. "No need to be so nervous, Mashu. I plan to make this the best date you'll ever have. Plus, I promised you before I would show you around my hometown, so there will be no better opportunity than this." Mash nodded in understanding and leaned on Issei's arm. And thus, their date began. "Issei, if there's one thing I can say, it's that at least that version of me had a date with someone who appreciated it." Issei had a melancholy presence around him as the girl tried to comfort him again. "Zenobia, don't worry, Issei. We appreciate it when you take us out on dates. We should go on one once we get back." The other girls, "Yeah, Issei, thanks everyone." Issei took Mash to a late lunch downtown and later to the museum. They spent time walking around town and even bought some clothes for Mash. When Mash asked why, Issei only replied with, "Well, you're probably going to be staying for a while since we're not sure how to go to and from Chaldea yet." Mash seemed to understand where her senpai was coming from. For all she knew, she was stuck there, although she didn't mind that at all. As sunset approached, Issei led Mash home. He intended to introduce the girl who had such a large impact on his life to his parents. He looked to the side and saw Mash fidgeting nervously. Issei put his hand on her back to calm her and gave her a warm smile. "Don't worry. I told them all about what happened to me while I was away. To be frank, they have been wanting to meet you for a long time. You'll be fine," Issei reassured her, and Mash seemed to relax a bit. They made it home and were stopped in front of the door. "Ready?" Issei asked. Azazel, bringing the girl home to meet mom and dad after the first date. This Issei definitely doesn't waste time. "Issei, what's that supposed to mean?" Azazel leveled a look at Issei as if he was looking at a troublesome child. The others chuckled quietly. Azazel, do you want me to spell it out for you? Issei felt like he would get roasted if he said yes, so he decided to back down. Mash took a moment. She looked at Issei and did something not even she expected. She had Issei on the lips. It took him completely by surprise, he didn't expect that from her. She took a deep breath. Yes, I'm ready. Everyone was stunned by the action, most of all the FGO group. Mash was never the assertive type, except when it came to Lancelot, so her actions for the past couple scenes on screen seemed out of place. Mash herself felt especially embarrassed, and seemed to overload because she was barely hanging on to consciousness. Akino, era, how bold Mash-san. Issei took a second to recover from the surprise, then opened the door and led Mash inside. Ka-san. Tu-san. I'm home, Issei announced as he came in. Welcome home, Issei. How did it go? Issei's mother asked from the kitchen. Nothing bad happened, right? Issei's father asked from the living room. Well, things were complicated in the beginning, but things worked out. In fact, I have someone for you to meet, Issei said while holding Mash's hand. The girls couldn't help smiling seeing Issei so happy, but they all were inwardly thinking, I wish that was me. There was a moment of silence as it seemed that both Issei's mother and father stopped what they were doing. Suddenly there was scrambling in the other rooms as the pair came into the front hall. There was surprise on their faces as they saw their son holding hands with a girl a bit shorter than him who had an intense blush on her face, while their son had a beaming smile. Is she? Could it really be? The pair couldn't hide their surprise. Issei, I wish they would have a bit more faith in me. Honestly, the only reason they weren't so shocked when they learned we started going out is because Rias messed with their mind to make it not seem weird that she was in my house in the beginning. Then they just got used to girls being around. Tu-san, Ka-san, I would like you to meet Mashu, my girlfriend, Issei said with pride while Mash's face turned an even deeper shade of red. Mash managed to recollect herself somewhat and removed herself from Issei's arm. Good afternoon, Senpai's parents. I'm Mash Purelight. And this little one is Fo. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Mash politely bowed with Fo on her shoulder. The hired pair were stunned for a moment, but then suddenly Issei's father seemed to realize something. Wait. Isn't that the name of the girl who you were with in the other world? His words seemed to make his wife realize this as well. Michael, looks like they aren't too flustered to think straight. They almost immediately figured out it was Mash-san. Yes, this is her. Like I said, things started off complicated. Let's go into the living room and I'll explain. After he said that, they all went to the living room and Issei explained about how the letter was a trap set by a fallen angel and how he summoned Mash to help fend her off. After that, the devils from his school came and chased the fallen off, and how they set up a meeting tomorrow to exchange information. The parents had a grave look on their face, clearly upset that someone tried to prey on their son's desires in order to kill him. They hoped this event didn't permanently scar their son from trusting anyone who shows interest in him, but from the look on his face as he was standing next to Mash, it didn't seem to be a problem at the moment. The pair bowed their heads deeply to Mash. Thank you so much, Mash-san. Not only did you protect our son when he disappeared, but you also saved him again from what was essentially an assassination attempt. There are no words to truly express how thankful we are. Mash shook her head. I'm the one who should be thankful. If it weren't for Senpai, I would have died a long time ago. Even when his memory was gone, he still did his best to help everyone. He went beyond what any human could have, and because of that, everyone was saved. In all honesty, I should be apologizing on behalf of Chaldea for essentially kidnapping your son. This time Mash bowed her head to the parents. Da Vinci, there's a lot of moving parts in this scenario. I think it's safe to say that Issei's experience was similar enough to Fujiwara-kun's, so it's probably safe to say what Mash is talking about is the same. The only thing that's still a mystery is Issei's summoning. I know Mythos said he meddled in it, but we don't know what the cause was. The two stared at Mash a bit then smiled. She is a really good girl, they both thought. They were happy their son met someone like her. Issei's mom put on a mischievous smile and addressed the girl. Hey Mash-san, it's okay if you start calling me Oka-san. Mash immediately sat up straight and started blushing again. Jumping in with the momentum, Issei's father said his piece as well. Then you can call me Ota-san as well, and we'll just call you Mashu. Issei, seems just like with Asia. Tu-san and Ka-san immediately accepted Mash-san. Mash, your parents seem like kind people. Issei, thank you, Mash-san. Mash didn't know how to respond and looked to her senpai for help. She was met with a slightly blushing Issei who clearly couldn't hide his happiness. He looked at her. See? I told you there was nothing to worry about. As things were starting to heat up, they were all suddenly interrupted. He KRZZRT and anyone here KZZRT. Something that sounded like a broken transmission was coming in. The Hayata pair were confused and alarmed, but Issei and Mash looked at each other, able to figure out what was happening. Issei created a magic circle with his hand and deactivated the bounded field around his house that blocked communications from coming in and out through magic. With that, the signal cleared up. Mash. Can you hear me? Come in. What's the situation? Seems everything is fine. A hologram appeared in the living room and on the display was Da Vinci. The parents were even more confused, but Issei was the first to respond. Da Vinci, seems I figured out how to communicate through timelines. I certainly am a genius after all. Ritsuka, you're amazing as always, Da Vinci-chan. Da Vinci, I know, but don't let that stop you from praising me. Ritsuka and Mash showered Da Vinci with more praise before focusing back on the screen. Hey Da Vinci-chan. Long time no see. How have things been? Issei asked casually. Da Vinci gave Issei a wry smile. Things have been hectic around here since you defeated Goichia. Lots of paperwork and interrogations. Don't you mean interviews? Mash asked. No. Da Vinci said with a smile that clearly indicated that she didn't like the talks she had with the Mages Association. Da Vinci, I hate those guys at the Mages Association. Too many strings attached. Also that they don't lose their grip on their power. Mythos, they're truly useless people. It doesn't matter how much power and influence they have, they're basically worthless at this point because they're too busy playing political chicken to do anything meaningful. Sirzex, you seem to have strong feelings about it. Mythos, I just hate people who flaunt their titles like it actually means something. That's why I'm not a fan of nobles or heroes as a general concept. So what if you come from some distinguished family? So what if your father is some big shot? What does any of that have to do with the fact that if I'm stronger than you I could beat the crap out of you in an instant? Even if you have security or someone to defend you, none of that is your power. It's simply the actions of a coward who can't do anything themselves. The hero title is similar, but that's its own rant that I don't want to get into right now. Vala touched a nerve? Mythos, not really, it's just I've had a lot of time to think about it. Let's get back to watching, but never mind me. What was happening to you, Fujimaru-kun? My readings earlier indicated you were in trouble, Da Vinci said with concern. It's a bit of a long story. Issei then explained what happened just like with his parents before. I see. Well, at least things worked out in the end. It looks like that battle was the catalyst you needed to reconnect with us. Those were my thoughts exactly. But the question is, where do we go from here? They all sat and thought until someone spoke up. Sorry to interrupt your meeting, but would you mind introducing your friend to us, Issei? His mother interjected. Issei laughed, embarrassed that he forgot that his parents were in the room. Right, sorry. Tu-san, Ka-san, this is Da Vinci-san, the other person from Chaldea that I told you about who helped me a lot. Da Vinci bowed to Issei's parents. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I am Leonardo da Vinci, but you can call me Da Vinci-chan, she said with a wink and a peace sign. Azazel, I'd been meaning to ask, are you that Leonardo da Vinci? Da Vinci, the very same. I thought. Mythos, I must stop you right there. If you wait a second, it will be explained for you. Issei's parents greeted her in return. Our son told us about you, but it's still hard to believe that you are the Leonardo da Vinci considered. While Issei's mom was referring to da Vinci being a woman. It's been a while since I got that reaction. It's fine, I am the real deal, but I figured, instead of coming back as a crotchety old man, I would take the form of the most beautiful thing in the world. And what could be more beautiful than the Mona Lisa? Da Vinci puffed out her chest to display how proud she was about her decision. Azazel, I see. Can't argue with taste. Although now I have to ask, why are you a child here but an adult there? Mythos spoilers? No more questions. Azazel seemed dissatisfied with that but reluctantly became quiet. We just finished thanking Mashu, but we would like to extend our thanks to you and all your staff for taking care of our son. Issei's mom continued. Da Vinci had a complicated expression. Well, it's no problem, but Mashu already told us about how he got there, and we forgive you all. It was an accident, and in the end our son became stronger for it. So we'll let bygones be bygones. Issei's father interjected. Da Vinci gave a grateful smile and turned to Issei. I see where you got your kindness and understanding from Ritsuka-kun. Issei had a bit of a shy smile on his face from that compliment. However, Issei's father had a question. I've been meaning to ask, why do you call Issei Ritsuka? Ritsuka, oh, are we finally getting an answer as to why he has my name? Issei, I'm really curious as well. Issei was the one to answer. I mentioned to you before when I was transported I lost my memory, which included my name. So they gave me an alias until I remembered it, which was Fujimaru Ritsuka. By the time I got my memory back, so much time had passed that I got used to being called that, and even though I told them my real name, I also recognized the name they gave me as my real name too. So I said they can keep calling me Ritsuka. The revelation of what happened to Issei shocked everyone. Issei, I lost my memory? Da Vinci, something must have gone wrong in the experiment to cause him to lose his memory, or mythos, I had nothing to do with the memory loss. I just made it so that he got summoned. Everything after that was completely chance. Although if you want my opinion, I think Alea and Gaia may have interfered, because even though Fujimaru Ritsuka didn't exist in this timeline, they knew he was missing from this timeline, so they molded a foreign element, aka Issei, to fill in the missing spot. Da Vinci, I see that does seem like a feasible possibility since the counter-force acts to try and prevent the world's extinction, like us. The parents nodded in understanding at their son's words. But now that the pleasantries were done, they had to refocus on the problem at hand. So, what should we do? Mash asked. Well, we should establish a summoning zone for you so that we send reinforcements to aid you. On top of that, we need to create a way to travel to and from, not only for you but for Mash as well. Issei was confused. Why for Mash as well? She didn't raise shift to get to your location. Rather, it seems you summoned her like someone would summon a traditional servant. Issei was surprised by this revelation. But I thought you needed a catalyst to summon a servant. Not only that, Mashu is a demi-servant. I thought it didn't work the same for her. Da Vinci shook her head. I don't know. I don't have enough data to know the reason yet. The only thing I really have to go off of is the fact that Mash became a servant thanks to you and you two have a strong connection. The thing that gets me the most is the matter of what the catalyst could be. I know what the catalyst is. Drake spoke for everyone to hear. Hello Drake, how are you? Issei's mom addressed the dragon happily. I'm the same. Thanks for asking. Issei, am I the only one who thinks it's weird that Ka-san and Drake are greeting each other like friends? Drake, it is a bit surreal. It's not like I have a reason to speak to your parents in the first place. You know what the catalyst is? Da Vinci asked, surprised. Yes. It was acquired during Partner's battle with Goetia. Issei was surprised yet again at the new bombshell. I picked something up at the Temple of Time. After we thought Mash died, Partner used her shield to fight Goetia, and when he dealt the final blow, the shield dissipated into magic particles. When that happened, Partner unintentionally absorbed some of the magic into the boosted gear. In other words, Mash's shield is a part of the boosted gear now. Azazel, how interesting. A sacred gear responds to the user's will, so Issei must have really wished for Mash to come back and in turn absorb the catalyst so that he would always have a connection to her. Da Vinci, is that how it works? How interesting. I would love to learn more about sacred gears. Azazel, well, that happens to be my area of expertise, so I would be glad to share what I know in exchange for something you know. Da Vinci, deal? Everyone was stunned at what they were just told. Da Vinci nodded in understanding. I see. Then with the catalyst absorbed by Ritsuka-kun along with his magic and strong bond with Mash, he was able to do a successful servant summon without the help of Chaldeas. Da Vinci was in contemplation. It's good that we figured this out, but we're getting off track, Mash said, trying to get back on topic. Right, sorry. Is there anywhere where we can set up a summoning circle? Asked Issei. I'm not detecting any ley lines near you, but there is a ton of magic around you. Yeah, that's my doing. Once I came back, I laid runes all over town for me to use just in case. I especially set runes in and around my house as well as a bounded field to protect it from the supernatural, which was why you were having trouble contacting us earlier. Rasweiss runes? Issei learned Nordic magic? Sona, not only that, but he also took precautions to prevent anything from happening to his home, even if he's away. Ritsuka, it seems he used the knowledge he got from Chaldea and put it to good use. Meanwhile, what am I doing? Ritsuka felt like he was inadequate seeing someone who was essentially in the same position as him using the same resources he has and putting them to better use. Mash saw her distraught senpai and immediately went to comfort him. Mash, you're doing good as a master. If anything, the fact that you're able to do so without the help of a dragon like Issei-san is a testament to your own ability. I see. Then in that case it may be possible for you to create a pseudo-ley line in your own home. You just need a place to put it. We have room in the basement. Issei's mother said. That would be the best way to keep it secret, right? Issei's father followed up. That works. In that case, once that has been set up, I have a few requests for the first ones you should send to help me. After that, Issei and Mash set up the magic circle in the basement. Da Vinci told them that it would take time to stabilize and should be done by the end of tomorrow, but for now she would continue to run diagnostics. Issei's parents led Mash to a spare room and Issei brought the things they bought on the date to her new room. Everyone was exhausted from all the excitement of the day, so they all retired for the night. Issei lay in his bed going over the crazy day he just had. He had been tricked by a fallen who tried to kill him, reunited with his kohai, met and set up a meeting with the devils, gone on a date with Mash, brought her home to his parents, and re-established contact with Chaldea. All in all, one hectic day. As he was beginning to drift into sleep, he heard a knock on his door. Come in, Issei said. The door opened and Mash was there in her nightwear. She nervously moved in the room. Senpai, if it's all right. Can I sleep with you? Akino, I was just kidding earlier. Is this really going to happen? Everyone was shocked at what they were watching. The DXD group were more interested to see where this goes, while the FGO group, especially Mash, felt like they shouldn't be watching this. Issei was frozen. His kohai kept on finding ways to surprise him, and it had been less than a day. He shook his head to get out of his daze, then responded. If that's what you want. He couldn't keep his voice from slightly shaking. Rias, I can see a bit of the usual Issei peeking out now. Despite my mixed feelings about this situation, I'm relieved. Girls, same. Mash closed the door behind her and laid down next to Issei. She moved herself so that she could wrap herself around Issei's left arm. Issei was having a hard time keeping himself calm. His old personality was screaming at him to take her here and now, while his current personality was doing its best not to scare her off. While Issei was having this inner dilemma, Mash spoke to him. I'm sorry, senpai. What for? I did a lot of things today based on my own feelings and didn't give you a chance to say yes or no. Issei was wondering what she was talking about, but she continued. I had you without asking. You bought clothes for me because I needed some, and you and your family provided me a room out of the kindness of your hearts. I should have. She was interrupted by on the lips from Issei. She was surprised but melted into the. Issei broke off the after a minute. Both Issei and Mash blushed intensely at the scene, while Ritsuka and the girls showed jealous expressions. The adults of the group looked amused at the turn of events. You're overthinking it, Mashu. Remember, I was the one who introduced you as my girlfriend. Nobody made me do it. I did it because I meant it. I want to be with you, Mashu. Although maybe I should be apologizing since I didn't ask if that was okay with you. Mash had tears forming in her eyes, but she was truly happy at what Issei said. This might sound ridiculous, but I think it might have been fate that we met. The time I spent away when I returned home was truly lonely for me. We have been through so much. I couldn't just move on from it. I felt the same. Even though it was less time for me, I felt it when you left. Chaldea felt so empty without you, and while I tried to keep myself distracted, I couldn't help but want to see you as soon as possible. Seraphal, this feels like it suddenly became a romance movie. Da Vinci, yeah, it suddenly became very sappy. The two were pouring out all of the emotions they had bottled up. Then issei decided to make the next move. Hey Mashu. He brought her in close. Why don't I show you just how much you mean to me? Once those words came out of his mouth, Mash completely passed out. Issei also had blood escaping his nose, as it seemed like this other version of him was about to lose his V-card. Again, Ritsuka and the girls felt incredibly jealous, with the girls looking a bit frustrated that they hadn't even done it with their issei yet. He locked eyes with Mash, seeking her confirmation. Mash stared back, processing what issei said until finally her entire face turned red. If one looked closely, you could swear you'd see steam coming out of her head. Finally, she responded once she got over her embarrassment. If it's with you, then I don't mind, she said shyly. Issei was celebrating in his mind but kept his cool. He didn't want to mess up this moment. That was important for both of them. Needless to say, either of them got much sleep that night. Mythos, and we're cutting here, because we don't need to watch a porno based on people we know. Issei, thanks. That would have been really awkward. Although, how can I say this? I'm jealous of other me being bold enough to lose his virginity so soon. The FGO group looked surprised by this. Da Vinci, wait, have you not done it with any of these girls yet? Issei, and no. Da Vinci, you're sending me all kinds of mixed signals here. You wanted a harem of girls that love you, but you haven't slept with any of them. Asia, we sleep in the same bed together. Da Vinci, that makes it worse. What the hell are you doing? Do you just need a hug from a bunch of people or what? This doesn't make any sense. Issei looked away, embarrassed and a bit ashamed. He has been dragging things out for a while. He promised the girls he would have his first time with all of them, but they never got around to doing it. Things had become so busy for them recently, but he also hasn't been making an effort to move his relationship forward with them. The girls have been doing most of the work when it came to their relationship. They always started it, and Issei followed up and finished it. It was a passive approach. The girls saw such an issei and were also unsure what to say. Da Vinci, sorry, I overstepped. It's not my place to say how you run your relationships. It's just surprising is all. Issei just nodded in acceptance to her apology, but it was clear he was in thought about his current relationship situation. Ritsuka had also been in quiet thought about everything. He was currently supporting a passed-out Mash, but was wondering about his own relationship with Mash. He had been honest with Mash about a lot of things but never brought up anything about being in a relationship. Granted, things would be difficult due to some of his servants' personalities, but Mash mattered enough where he would be willing to deal with it. He just simply hadn't. The adults saw that now the two protagonists of their groups were reevaluating their lives simply based off of an alternate version of what was essentially both of them combined. Mythos decided to step in. Mythos, hey you two, I know you're reevaluating your lives right now, but I'll let you in on a little secret. It isn't completely your fault for your situations. The group looked at Mythos with great curiosity. Mythos, as I mentioned before, your multiverses originated from my world, and since you're essentially manga/anime protagonists, you, to some degree, have to be relatable enough to the people watching/reading your story to keep them hooked. And while this might be a bit cruel of me to say, the underlying implication of most businesses is going to be young virgin teens are going to be reading/watching our product. I'm sure you've all seen it plenty of times in books and TV. A main character who has someone clearly interested in them, but a relationship is never really formed until the end of the series or something like that. That's the situation you two are in too. In Ritsuka's case, he has to be available to satisfy all the various fantasies of the readers, ending up with their preferred servants, while issei is something of a wish fulfillment of having hot girls fawn all over someone who is for all intents and purposes average looking, and as Da Vinci said earlier, with tastes that are less than appropriate for modern society. The group had various looks of discomfort from Mythos' explanation. Seeing this, Mythos decided to wrap up his explanation. Mythos, my point is, the reason your relationships are the way they are is to not break the illusion of the reader/watcher being able to identify and place themselves in the shoes of the character they're following. Issei, so we're just stuck like this. We don't have a choice in what's going to happen with our own lives? Mythos, if I had left things as they were, then the answer would be yes. But now that you're here and have been made aware, what happens next is up to you. The others weren't sure what to make of Mythos' words, so he explained further. Mythos, my interference in bringing you here has created another timeline in both your respective multiverses, or rather they will when you return. By giving you knowledge that you had no way of getting, I have now shifted the course of events your particular universes will take. Sona, isn't that dangerous? Mythos, most things in life are. You take a risk for every decision you make, because you never truly know what the repercussions of your actions are until they happen. But if you're so concerned about it, then there is a simple solution. Everyone leaned in waiting for the answer. Mythos, when you leave here, I can erase your memories of being here, so there won't be any change in your actions and thus making events happen as they're supposed to. Valid? And if we keep them? Mythos, well, you become a branch in the timeline. No longer the main timeline, but free to get different results than what Issei Ishibumi and Kanoko Nasu had planned for you. In a sense, it would be true freedom. Everyone contemplated what path they wanted to take, now knowing they were simply following a path someone else made for them. But Da Vinci seemed to have a different perspective. Da Vinci, while I'm not a fan of having things predetermined for me, going off the beaten path is dangerous in its own way. In our multiverse in particular, if we stray too far from a good path, then that timeline is erased so that the others can survive. Mythos, like I said, it's a risk. Even in the case of the DxD universe, changing things too much can have catastrophic consequences, like with issei dying early because of one decision Rias made. Rias' mood fell when Mythos said that. She didn't want to think about it, but it was true that the bad timeline that was corrected by him was caused because Rias made one decision differently. Issei tried to comfort her, but it only made her feel worse. Mythos, seeing this, awkwardly scratched his head. Mythos, look, let's just continue for now. There's no reason to think about it now, and we have plenty of time to talk about it later. I didn't mean for things to get like this, just from an implied scene. The others nodded in agreement, and the viewing continued after they finally woke Mash up. Thanks for watching this video. You really enjoy this video. Like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow Myth0s216 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.